Hey, very good Sunday morning to my friends from Brumley Baptist Church. Hope that you're doing well. Hope that you've had a good day, a good weekend, and that your week was good also, and that Lord blessed you in many ways, and that you were aware of those blessings and leaned upon Him and let Him direct your path. I know that's what we're all striving to do every day, and I pray that's what you were able to do these past 7 days. We want to be careful today to honor God in all things, and to do that, we've got to have humility. And that's what Daniel chapter 4 is going to teach us about today. We are in session 10. This is page 91 in your Sunday School Quarterly. We have made our way through Ezekiel for several weeks, and now we are turned to Daniel for the last 3 or 4 weeks. And today's another one of those good lessons in a story that you're going to be somewhat familiar with, I think. Pride is one of the ugliest words in the English language. The Bible multiple times states that God hates pride. He hates prideful people, people that are self-righteous, people that think that they are good enough, or their own actions or attitudes or their own hearts or any of those things are good enough without Him. Pride is the precursor to a fall, to a stumbling, to a problem. And we're going to see that today in this particular story. This is going to involve Nebuchadnezzar. Nebuchadnezzar's been having dreams. Daniel has been able to look at those and interpret those dreams and tell Nebuchadnezzar on occasion, hey, this is what God is trying to tell you. This is the message of this or that particular dream. And so at times that's been helpful, and Nebuchadnezzar has listened. And then at other times he has become very prideful because of these things. And that's what we're going to see here specifically today. And the opposite of that pride, which is a worshipful time, a worshipful spirit, a humble spirit toward God. And so we're going to see that as well today. We are in Daniel chapter 4, if you have a Bible, or again, if you have your Sunday School Quarterly there, and you can read some of the background information, some of the context information there. And let's dive into the 3-part lesson here today, starting with pride declared. All this happened to King Nebuchadnezzar. And at the end of 12 months, as he was walking on the roof of the royal palace in Babylon, the king exclaimed, "Is this not Babylon the Great that I have built to be a royal residence by my vast power and for my majestic glory?" Well, you can just hear the arrogance, right? Now, Nebuchadnezzar was a good king as far as worldly standards go. He had built an empire. He had strengthened the Babylonians. He had done a lot of those things, but you can just hear in his voice and in his words the arrogance that comes from him as he basically makes this declaration, as he makes this statement. Wow, I'm such a great guy, and I have made by myself such a powerful kingdom. Well, we know better, right? We realize that none of us have ever accomplished anything of ourselves. Even people that are not believers or don't believe in God realize that other people contribute to their success or to their building up of anything. So at the very least, we would at least look at others. Nebuchadnezzar doesn't do that. He doesn't look at others, and he certainly doesn't look at God. He simply looks at himself and says, wow, I am pretty great. Wow, I am awesome. Wow, I have accomplished these incredible things. That's incredibly problematic. And it's just pride declared. Now, he had built a lot of things. He had done a lot of things, but he says in verse 30 that he had done them by, quote, his vast power and his majestic glory. Both of those things just reek with arrogance and with a great deal of pride. I mean, what a terrible way to be, what a terrible thought to have, that you alone are the one who's accomplished all these things by your own ability, by your own strength, by your own pride. And so obviously there's problems here. Well, reality tells him something different. Listen, while the words were still in the king's mouth, a voice came from heaven. And literally, while he was saying these terrible things, a voice came from heaven. King Nebuchadnezzar, to you it is declared that the kingdom has departed from you. You will be driven away from the people to live with the animals, and you will feed on grass like cattle for 7 periods of time until you acknowledge that the Most High is ruler over human kingdoms, and he gives them to anyone he wants. At that moment, the message against Nebuchadnezzar was fulfilled. He was driven away from his people. He ate grass like cattle, and his body was drenched with dew from the sky until his hair grew like eagle's feathers and his nails like birds' claws. Talk about a fall from grace, an instantaneous bringing about of God's judgment upon yourself. That's exactly what happens here to Nebuchadnezzar. At that moment, the immediacy of God's judgment comes directly in verse 33. While the words were in his mouth, God makes the declaration. And now you're going to go out, you're going to be an animal. You're literally going to fall from this great, mighty, majestic king that you think you are to becoming an animal. You're going to eat from the field. You're going to eat grass. You're going to grow long hair and long nails, just like claws and feathers. And you're going to literally look, act, and have intellect like an animal. I'm taking the kingdom from you. You're going to be driven away from it. You're not going to be all these things that you think you are. Reality is, I brought you up and I can take you right back down. And dear friends, that's the same truth for all of us. God put us in the places we are for his glory and for our good. And if we cease to see it that way, God can remove us just as quickly as he placed us there. Just as much as you have built up a life and the things around you, God can take those things and chop them down instantaneously. Health, wealth, all that stuff is momentary and will pass through your fingers like sand. We just need to be reminded of that. Because again, pride leads to sinful hearts and sinful attitudes. And that's not what we want. That's not who we want to be. That's not the kind of person that we want to ever reference ourselves as, or the kind of individual we want to. That's just not who we want to be in any way, shape, or form. And so we need to move away from that. The reality was defined very quickly for Nebuchadnezzar. By the end of those days, I, Nebuchadnezzar, looked up to heaven, and my sanity returned to me. I praised the Most High and honored and glorified him who lives forever. For his dominion is an everlasting dominion. His kingdom is from generation to generation. All the inhabitants of the earth are counted as nothing, and he does what he wants with the army of heaven and the inhabitants of the earth. There is none who can block his hand or say to him, "What have you done?" At that time, my sanity returned to me, and my majesty and splendor returned to me for the glory of my kingdom. My advisors and my nobles sought me out. I was reestablished over my kingdom, and even more greatness came to me. Now I, Nebuchadnezzar, praise, exalt, and glorify the King of the heavens, because all his works are true and his ways are just. He's able to humble those who walk in pride. Almost as quickly as it went away, it seems to return here to Nebuchadnezzar. When he gets the right attitude back, his kingdom comes back. When he praises the God that he ought to praise, good things happen. You have to remember, this is the third time Nebuchadnezzar has had an encounter with God. In chapter 2, he bowed before God when Daniel interpreted his dream. In chapter 3, he praised the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego when they were rescued from the fiery furnace. And now he himself has been directly humbled. And after that humiliation, he comes back and praises God in a very different and, for the time being, real way. Now, it's not going to last. We're going to note as we go forward and talk more about him that obviously Nebuchadnezzar is not a name we associate with a great godly king in general. And so we'll see how that happens. But at least for now, for the moment, humility sets in. He is humbled and he serves and praises this God, Daniel's God, the one true God. And we learn something from that. We have to remember that people must be aware of their prideful declarations. We need to be careful and walk that line gingerly between thankfulness and pridefulness, between being happy and proud of the things that we have done and a sinful pride for those things. God's in control of all creation. He brings nations up, he takes them down. He brings kings up, he brings them down. We as a country are only great because God has allowed us to be such. And if we ever stop being one nation under God, we will be a nation that's gone under. And I firmly believe that. God is worthy of our honor and praise. No matter what the circumstances around us may or may not be, God is always, always supremely worthy of our praise and our adoration. Because he is God, not for what he's done, but simply for who he is, the God of all the ages. Next week, we will begin to think about the idea of what is it like to trust that God. Trust him with our finances, trust him with our life, trust him in any and all circumstances. We will be in Daniel chapter 6, verses 10 through 24. I hope that you can join me then for another study here on Facebook and on YouTube as well. Also, love to see you at 10 a.m. on Sunday morning at Brumley Baptist Church as we gather together to worship the one true King. Thank you for joining me today. Have a good and godly day. And until we meet again, go serve your King.